Hey, welcome to this new tutorial. So last time what we did was we created this entry, so this item to put inside of our array that contains a container ID. So that could be the player inventory, the skill bar, the I don't know, item slot or whatever it is. We have a item tag to tell the inventory what item this is, like it could be a potion, a weapon, a piece of bread or whatever. And the indexed is where inside of the array this item is going to be stored and the quantity of it. And then we have the actual array itself, which is just this T array here that stores a bunch of these entries. And then we made a component that can be added to a player controller, and that has a couple of functions in it. For one, it has a request to add an item, so that the client can request to add, remove, or whatever else it needs later, and a server RPC for it, and then the actual function that the server is going to use to add or remove, or for here right now just adding an item. Alright, and this is the actual array, so this inventory, we've added this here also. Okay, yeah, so we want to add an item to the inventory. So first is the client is asking to add an item. So I'm going to check if get owner, if get owner is valid, and get owner has authority. Now if we get the owner and we are authority, meaning that we are the server, then we can just call this function directly because we are already on the server. So I can just call try add item authority, passing in these things here, and then we can return. Don't forget the return, otherwise you'll be adding an item twice later. So we do a request, we check, we are already on the server, so we can just add the item straight up. Now if this fails, if we do the check here and it fails, so none of this will run, so we'll go directly here, and here we can call server request add item. Okay. And in the server here, all you have to do is just call the try add item authority. There we go. So the client call this, we check, are we on the server? No. Then ask the server to do the operation for us. Then the server can finally call the try add item. Great. Now here I'm gonna add an extra security here and do the same thing that I did there, so basically just this line. Just check for authority again and return false if we are not on the server, because if we are running this, we have to be on the server. If you want to add an item, we have to make sure that the container, the item, and the quantity that is being provided to us, that all of these are valid. Because if the container is not valid, then we won't be able to know where this item is supposed to go. Or if this is not valid, then we don't know what the item is, right? So let's do some checks. Let's do a if container ID is valid. Actually, this if is not valid, so forget to add this. Say not valid, then we return false. And let's do the same thing for if the item is not valid, we return false. And then lastly, we'll do another one, and we'll do int 32. Int 32. Quantity is greater let's do less or equal to 0, we return false. So if the amount that we are trying to add is 0 or -1 or whatever weird number, then we will also return false. Cool, that's the basic checks before we try to add any item. Now there's a problem here, is that right now we return true or false, right? If we want to add an item and we successfully add the item, we just return true. If we fail, we return false. Simple enough. But let's consider this. You have 10 potions on the ground, but you're trying to pick up. You have 5 or let's say 3 space left in your inventory. Well, you try to pick up the items. What do we do now? Do we check the inventory space and say, well, you only have 3 space left, so we are not going to pick up anything? Or do we pick up the 3 of the 10 item, or the, what was it, 10 item? I forgot. Let's say it was 10. We say, okay, do we pick up 3 of the 10 items so that there's 7 left, and we pick up 3 of them, and now the inventory is full and we can't pick up any more. So now what do we return now if we do that? Which is what I want to do actually. I want to still be able to pick up whatever is on the floor until my inventory is completely full, and then stop from there. So in order to do that, we would have to, what do we return? So now what do we return? Do we return success or failure? If we only picked up 3 items, let's say, well, we did pick up 3 items, so we did add some item to our inventory, so do we return true? But we did not pick up everything. There's still 7 items left on the floor, so do we return false? And that's where we need to be able to return a little bit more information than just this true or false, right? So I would also want to return an int 32, for example, quantity added, right? I would want to return what amount was I able to add, and also I would return something like a quantity requested, right? Let's say we wanted to add 10 items and we added 3 of them, and then we also would need a quantity remaining, right? Remaining, I think that's correct, is it? No, it's not remaining. There we go. So we would want these information too, right? So quantity requested was 10, quantity added was 3, and in this case quantity remaining would be 7, right? And again, in this case, what do we return? Do we return true or false? So I would want to return something else. Let me add this here. I'm going to add a enum. Call it add item result period 8, and then do something like a success, partial success, failed. Right, so now I can have a add item result. Result can be success, but in this case it would be a partial success, right? So we can return all of these information now. We can try to add the item and then return what amount of the item we tried to add, what amount was actually added, what amount is remaining to be added, and what was the result of the operation. Was it a success, partial success? Was it a failure? That's what I want to return, not just true or false, because that doesn't tell us anything. So in order to return all of these information, I would have to pass in here right? I would have to pass in some kind of int 32 quantity requested, or quantity added, because quantity requested is just quantity here. So quantity added, and then I would have to pass in quantity remaining, int 32, and then instead of creating it here, I would just modify them, right? So oh shit, delete this here, and I would actually just pass this by a reference. There you go. So now what we are doing is we are getting a container ID, a item tag, a quantity that we want to add and all that, and also we are taking in a quantity added and a quantity remaining by reference, so that we can modify these values directly. So now we can modify them, and then whoever called this function can now retrieve these values. So that's cool, and we would also want to add this one too. So we would also want to have a add result, right? So that we can just modify the value of result, and then whoever calls this function can have access to all of this information. But as you can see, we are passing quite the hefty amount of parameters now in here. Not ideal, not ideal. So let's fix this. Let me just remove all of this. That was just to hopefully make you understand what we are going to try to do now. So first thing first is, let me reduce the amount of things that I'm passing in here. So right now I'm passing in the container ID, the item tag, and the quantity. Well, okay, so instead of passing in all of this information like this, I'm going to condense them into one single struct, and I'm going to pass that struct in here instead, so that I can just write one thing instead of writing all of this. Let's create a new file. Actually, let's make a new folder first. Inside of inventory here, I'm going to make a new folder in the public. So I'm in the public, inside the inventory. I'm going to make a new folder called types. Types is going to contain all the structs and enums and whatever else we will need. I'm going to make another folder inside of it so that it's neatly organized. I'm going to call this requests. Inside of request is where I'm going to add a new file. I didn't add a new function, I'm adding just a new file. I didn't add a new class, I'm adding a file. I'm going to name this it request types.h. Don't forget this. Okay. Let's create this file. So now we have an empty file. We can put anything that we want inside. So first thing first, if you try to compile this, is going to complain. So we need to make sure that we have pragma once. We also need the core minimal, and one last thing that we need is the it request type generated.h. Alright. Okay, so now we can start actually work on this file. So what we want inside of it, I'm going to make a struct. I'm going to make a add item request. Let's make this a blueprint type. Inside of here, let's make a U property. It can be edited anywhere, blueprint read write category equals, let's do inventory and request. Okay, so exactly what I need. So the container tag, we will need to also include the gameplay tag container. Alright, so yes, so what we want in here is just like here, we were passing in the container tag, the item tag, and the quantity. So I'm going to condense all of that in here. So we have the container tag, we need the item tag, so f gameplay tag, item tag, and new property again, the int 32 quantity. Can set it to 1 by default. Alright. So now we have this add item request, right? Which will let me now, if I want to, I can come here and include that file. So inventory. My computer just froze. Inventory type request inventory types, and I have 2 slashes here. Alright. So now I'm just gonna empty this, remove all of this, and replace it by the f add item request, and I'm gonna call this request. Look at that. So instead of writing all of that now, we've condensed all of it into just this request, and the request is what contains the container tag, item tag, and the quantity. Great. So let's do the same thing for the other ones too. So I'm just gonna copy this and select all of this here and paste it here. Paste this here. Go here. We're gonna complain. So let's replace this, and replace this. Alright. So now let's clean this up. We need to pass in request instead. Request and request. And now that we have request is the one that contains the container ID, the item tag, and the quantity. We can also do our checks just like we were doing here, but instead all we have to do is do this. If not valid, we do request dot container. Oh, that's why. Container ID. I was like, what the hell is going on? Well, here. So now we can do request dot container ID, and that is valid. So it's pretty much the same thing that we were doing before, just that now we have to check from the request instead. And you can do the same thing again. So request item tag is valid, and same for quantity. If request the quantity is less or equal, return. Now we don't need this anymore. Here we go. We've simplified this a little bit. Okay, cool. So now I'm actually missing one of the parameters. Earlier we discussed about an enum that would tell us if it was successful, partially successful, or if it was a failure. So we're going to add that here. So I'm going to add a new enum. Can be blueprint type, a enum class, a e add item result, and then this, I'm gonna call it full success. partial success and failed. Alright, this is what I want to return. But also we need to return the the requested quantity, the quantity that we actually added, and the remaining quantity also. So just like I did with this, I'm going to do the same thing for all the information that we need to return, and I'm going to create a ustruct here, ustruct, and I'm going to call this a add item response. In here, I can now create a U property, doesn't have to have anything, and create a add item result. By default, I'm gonna put it as failed. Add another U property, U property, and we need a int32 requested quantity, 0 U property, a int32 added quantity, to 0 U property, int32 remaining quantity. Okay, so now we have a response. So we call to add an item, so we build a request with all of these things in there, and then once we are done adding the item, we can build a response and return the response. Okay, so here in my try add item, even before checking for authority, I'm going to build one of these response. So my try add item authority needs to build one of the response that we just created. Right? I'm going to create that here. So f add item response, and also while we are here, we could make all of these const, because the request should not change. We are not trying to change the request after we've made a request to add an item. Okay, so these can be const, and so again const everywhere. So const, a const, and const, and this one is going to complain because now we don't have a response. So here we go. It needs a response to fill up, to return. And here again it needs a response, so let's create that. So I'm just gonna do an f add item response, pass in the response. That stops the complaint. Do the same thing for here, response. Okay, so again now we have a request and a response. So one thing I'm going to do is even before checking for authority, I'm going to build one of these response, and also I'm actually going to rename this to out, so we know that we are filling this up and sending the information and not receiving the information from it. So rename this to out. Okay, so I'm gonna take the out response dot result first and set it to fail. Then out response again, taking in the requested quantity that can be equal to my request dot quantity. Take the out response dot quantity, so added quantity, that can be equal to, well, for now we haven't added anything, so it's 0, and out response dot, what else do we have in there? We have a remaining quantity. Well, the remaining quantity is my request.quantity. So we are trying to add 10 items, let's say 10 potion we are trying to pick up. We haven't picked up anything yet, right? We haven't done the addition, any calculation or anything yet. We haven't even checked if anything is valid. So the added quantity is 0, and then the remaining quantity to be added. So what amount of item we still have to add is, well, it's still 10 potion. So we requested to add 10 potion, we haven't added anything, and the amount left to be added is still 10. Still our 10 potion, because we haven't added any of it yet. So we've built that. That's the default response. So that if this fails, this is now populated with fail, the requested quantity, the added quantity which is 0, and the requested quantity. And if any of these fail also, we've already built this, so this is what is returning out of this. Great. And now it's finally time to try to add an item. But I'm actually not going to add the item here. So why? Well, this component here, inventory component, is going to become quite big, and I want this to stay very well organized. So I'm going to separate the operation of adding, removing, moving, or splitting an item to its own class, like a mutator class, that its only job is to mutate things from the inventory. So this function here will just use that class to tell it, okay, you add an item for me, you remove an item for me, move an item, or split an item. But we are not going to do it directly here, because if we do, also this function is going to be super big, and I don't want that. I want it to stay nice and neat. So we are going to need a new class that's going to take care of adding the item for us. To public inventory and add a new class. Yeah, it can be a class. Add a new class. A U object is fine. I'm gonna call this IT inventory mutator, or you can call it inventory operations, or mutator is fine. You can call it whatever we want, but yeah, this is what's gonna do the actual adding, moving and removing and all that. And I'm gonna put this in a folder called mutator. Mutator. So inventory mutator in the public inventory mutator folder. Here. And let's add it. I'm going to get rid of all of that. Don't need any of that. There we go. Oh, and alright, and yep, my recording crashed and I had no idea, so now I just deleted a bunch of stuff that I just did, and we are starting over again. Fuck. Anyway, yeah, where were we? So I guess this is where my recording crashed last time, so let's start back from here. I'm gonna add a public section and create a function in here. So now, instead of just having a function that just returns a bool, just do a bool add item, for example. I'm not gonna return a bool. I'm going to return, let's include the inventory types request, and I'm going to return a f add item, f add item response add item. Okay, so that's cool because this can contain a bunch of information, right? So instead of returning just a bool, we return this struct, and this struct of course contains the state. So if it was a failure, success, the requested quantity, the actual added amount, and the remaining amount. So that's great. and this function will need a couple of things. So for one, we need to give it the inventory that we have that we want it to do the operation on. So what inventory are we adding this in? So f inventory array, and we need to do the include. So include the inventory, include by reference, call it inventory. Next thing you will need is a const f add item request, right? It needs the request, what we are trying to add. Let's implement this function. Cool. So it needs to return a response. So let me just create one. So add item response and call it response and do a return response. And now, just like we did for this one where we created a default response, we're going to do the exact same thing here. So I want a default response so that if anything fails, we just return the default one. So we can do response dot result. Let's do the result first. Failed. Response dot requested. Let's do requested quantity equals to request response dot added quantity. Is it added quantity? Is it not? What did I call it? Add quantity equals 0. Well, actually, I should name this added quantity instead of add quantity. I'm going to change this to added quantity here. And then go back here and do added quantity, so the quantity that was added successfully. Changes here also in my try add item authority, so added quantity. Okay. And response dot remaining quantity. Now remaining quantity is again equal to request quantity. Great. And let's make sure that everything is indeed valid. So check if the container is valid, check if the item is valid, request dot item tag, and check if the request dot quantity is not smaller than 0 or 0. Great. Before I continue here, actually, let me go back to this component here. In this function here, I'm going to go to my inventory component, make a private section, so that I can add my, what is it, FIT inventory mutator, call it inventory mutator. Oh, and don't forget to add the include for it, otherwise it won't let you. So add the include, and now we have access to this inventory mutator. So now from here, I know that my inventory mutator, the add function, returns a add item response populated with all the information that we need. So I'm going to make a const f add item response, call it response equals the inventory mutator, call the add item function. It needs my inventory, right? So we're passing in this inventory, and it needs the request. Cool. So we call this function, and this function returns a response. And we have this default response from earlier that we made, right? So let's update this default response. So out response, oops, no, out response, oh my god, out response equals response. Okay, so whatever we get from here is what we are going to update this with. Great. And one last thing here, I'm going to do out response that added quantity is greater than 0. So what this means is we call the function to add an item, which returns a response, and we've updated the out response with that response. So now we can check, well, how many item was actually added, right? If the amount of item that was added is 0 or less, well, this is going to return false. So this boolean is going to return false. If the item is 1 or more, then this is going to return true, and this is going to return true. That's all we are doing here, just checking. Did we actually add anything? If yes, return true. Did we add anything? No, return false. That's basically it. Very simple. Now let's go back to this mutator here. Alright, now we have to think, what do we actually want to do here? When adding an item, the first thing that I want to do is to actually check, do we already have an item of the same type in the inventory? Because if we do, for example, if we already have a potion in my inventory, well, I might as well just stack the potion into it, and I don't need to put it in a new slot. I already have one. So if I have already an existing stack of, let's say, 2 potion, well, and I'm trying to add 10, well, I can just add everything to it. So now it's a stack of 12, right? And later we might have something like a stack limit. So let's say the potion can only stack up to 10 max. So if we try to add, let's say it's a stack of 2, and we are trying to add 10 to it, so we can only add 8 to it, and then there's 2 left, and the 2 that we have left, we can just put that in a new slot. But we are not there yet. Right now, all I'm trying to do is just check, do I already have an item of the same type, for example a potion? If yes, well, I don't want to put the item that I'm trying to add in a new slot. I just want to add it in the same slot. Okay, cool. So let's do that. So I'm going to put a comment here. I'm going to do first pass fill existing stack of the same item. I'm going to create a for loop. So for we're going to loop entry, and inventory entries. So we are looping over all the entries in our inventory, right? So where's my fast array here? So here we go. So the array contains a bunch of entries, and we are just looping over all of them to check. What do we check? So first thing that I want to check is if entry dot container ID is not equal to requested container ID, and I want to do a continue here. Continue. Oh, what the hell? Oh, return continue. Continue. Okay. So what I'm trying to do here is just checking. Now I got an entry, so I want to check if that entry is in the same container. What that means is it in the player inventory, for example? If I'm trying to add a potion in the player inventory, well, is the other potion that I found, or the other item that I found, is it also in the player inventory? Because if it's not, we don't care about it. We only care if it's because right now we are trying to add in this container. We need to know if we have other item in the same container only. If you have an error here, by the way, I don't know if that was during my crash that I fixed this, but If you have an error here, just go to your in your to your request, I believe it was, and here instead, if it says container, if it says f gameplay tag container, just fix it to f gameplay tag accept, and that should fix it. Okay, so now that we know that if it's in the same container, because if it's not, we just continue, and continue just means, well, skip this entry and keep going, find another one. Before we do this, actually, I want to check if I do have any item remaining to be added before I actually do that loop. Let me do this. So let's do int 32, and here's a crash. Let's actually do an int 32, call this remaining equals response dot remaining quantity. It's just so that I don't have to type response dot remaining quantity every time. And now I can do if remaining is less or equal to 0. So if we have 0 item remaining, we just break out of the loop. We don't even want to run the loop because we don't have anything to add anyway. Remaining is 0, so we just stop here. Yes, so now we have an entry and we know it's in the same container. So now I want to check if that entry has the same tag. So is it also, let's say if I'm trying to add a potion, is it also a potion? Because if it's not, then I'm just going to continue because I don't care about it. I can't stack a potion on top of a weapon, for example. Okay, so now we know that we have an item, it's in the same container, and it has the same tag. So let's add to it. So I'm gonna take that item that I just found and then take its quantity and do a plus equal the remaining. Okay, and then I'm gonna take remaining and set it to 0 because I've taken everything that was in remaining and added it to the quantity. So if there was 2 potions, let's say, in my inventory already, and I was trying to add 10, now I take the 10 and I add it to the quantity. So now there's 12. So remaining to be added is now 0. And I can now update my response quantity. So added quantity equals, oh, that's a problem here. So I should do, I need another, I'm gonna create another variable here. I'm gonna do an int 32 added to stack equals remaining. That will simplify this after. So instead of adding remaining here, I'm gonna add it to stack. Okay, so we're doing basically the same thing that we were doing before. Nothing changed, right? So added to stack is remaining. So if it was 10 items that we were trying to add, well, we take the 2 potions that we had in the inventory already and we add the 10 to it. Okay, and then we set remaining now to 0. Why did I create this? Because I need this value still, because now that I've set this to 0, I still need access to this value actually, because response dot added quantity will be equal to added to stack. So remaining is 10, meaning we are trying to add 10 items. So added to stack right now is 10. We set remaining to 0. So added to stack is just here as a temporary variable to hold this value for me, so I can set my added quantity after. Great. And after doing all that, we can now do an inventory dot, I'm gonna do mock item dirty, giving it the entry, but we just, oops, no, what? Okay, so what is mock item dirty? It's basically just telling Unreal that, well, this item was changed, so I need you to replicate this item specifically. So not the whole array, just this specific item needs to be replicated. Let's add a comment here. So let me copy this in and add this here. Alright. So this is what this is doing. So again, we check if we already have an item in the inventory. If we already have, let's say, potion, then we add to the already existing stack. Otherwise, now if this fails, meaning that if we don't have an item already, what we want to do is, let's call this the second pass. And create new stack in 3 slots. So if we do not already have an item of the same type, well, we need to put this in a new slot. So I'm gonna do a while remaining is greater than 0. So as long as we actually have an item remaining to be added, we can keep looping this. We'll do a find the first 3 slot. Now I need a function here that will find me the first 3 slot in the array or the container. But I do want to go and test this as fast as possible, so I'm not gonna make that function yet. We can do that later. I'm just going to make a const int 32 free slot indexed equals 0. So I'm gonna put it in the slot index 0, which is the first slot of the array. So we're just gonna hardcode. We are just going to hardcode this for now. Now I'm going to create an entry. So a new entry, right? Because we are putting an entry in the array. So we need a new entry, and then this new entry can have its container ID set to the requested. Oh, wait, this is complaining because that shouldn't be here. Okay. New entry, same thing, the tag and the quantity. Oh, and the new entry dot slot indexed is the slot 0. Great. So we are looping and checking. Well, while we still have item remaining, we create a new entry. We set all of its information, and then we put that in slot 0. Cool. Now that we've done this, we can do remaining, take remaining, and do a minus equal new entry dot quantity. Why? Because whatever was remaining, we've added to this new entry, right? So we just remove what we've added from remaining. And let's do the response added quantity. So now we can update the added quantity also, which it is now whatever we've added to this new entry. Great. And now we can tell the we need to add this entry to the array. So we've created an entry, we've set all the information on the entry, we've updated our remaining quantity, we've updated our response. Now let's actually add this to the array. So how do we do that? Well, we can just do inventory dot entries dot add. That would be too simple. Yeah, we can't do that. So how do we do it? We need to create an inventory entry. I'm gonna call this added reference, right? because I need a, why am I doing this? Because I need a reference to the entry that I'm adding to the array, so that I can tell Unreal to mark it dirty and replicate it. That's why I'm doing this. So inventory, how do we do this? We do inventory dot entries dot add, here we go, add get ref, and giving it the entry. So now this has the address of where this entry is. This is important, so let me add a small comment that I've prepared. Here we go. Small little comment here so that we know what's going on. I'm going to then take my inventory dot mark item dirty added ref, and let's add a comment to it. We are telling Unreal to replicate this item specifically. Now there's one more thing to do here. On top of replicating the item, I have changed the structure of the array, meaning that I did not just change an existing item in it and change the quantity of it or something. I actually added something to it. I modified one of its slots. So adding, removing, and all that stuff is a structural change of the actual array. And when that happens, when you add something or remove something, you need to tell the inventory dot mark array dirty. So let me copy my small comment, and here we go. Here we go. So there was a structural change, so we need to mark array dirty so that it replicates the entire array now. Good, nice. So now we have, so now we check if there's already an item of the same type. If we do have one already, we just add to it. If we do not, then we just create a new entry and then put that in a new slot. Great. And now let's update our response. So I'm gonna do response.remaining quantity equals remaining, which at this point should be 0. Now let's check. Let's do request response.added quantity. Now, we've done all of this, right? So we've called this function to try to add an item, and we've gone through all of that. So after we've done all of this, if added quantity is 0, meaning that we've gone through all the trouble of trying to add all of this and yet we didn't add anything, well, what does that mean? That means that response.result we should set to fail, because we tried to add an item and at the end response add quantity is still 0, so we didn't add anything. So that was a failure. Something happened. Our inventory maybe was already full, so we could not add anything. So it's a failure. Else if response that quantity, hold up, not this, change this to is greater than 0. So now if we did add something, so we already checked first if the added quantity is 0, so we know that it's not 0 if we got to here. So we did add something, but remaining quantity is greater than 0, meaning that there's still more stuff to be added. So what happened here? Well, maybe our inventory was not completely full yet. Let's say there was 2 free slots left, and then we tried to add 10 items. Well, we added 2 of these items, and now there's still 8 of them left to be added that we can't add because there's no more space. So in that case, that's not a failure, but that's a partial success. We partially were able to add some of the items, but not all of them. And now the last thing that can happen is it's a success. So we check first, did we add anything, and if it's not 0, then we go to the next one, so we know that we were successful. So we check if added quantity is not 0, so yes, it's not more than 0 if we got to here. We also check if remaining is greater than 0, and yes, remaining is not greater than 0 if we got to here. Then if we did add an item and we don't have anything left, then that means that we were successful in adding everything. So that's it. We can now go and test this. Holy, that was a lot. Okay, before we test all of this, I do need to add some logs so we can see what's happening, because we don't have any visuals yet, right? So we should check things by using logs. So I'm going to add a log here. Do a log temp. Nope. Use a warning to make it. What the hell? Oh wait. Warning. Text. Let's do mutate. Add item. That's where I am right now. I'm in the mutator class and I'm in the add item function. And I'm inside the loop that is trying to stack an item. So I'm gonna say stacking into. Let's format this so it looks pretty. Slot equals %d. That's the slot that it's going into, and current quantity equals %d. And let's do entry dot slot indexed and entry dot quantity. Alright, here we go. So now we have a log that is going to log the slot and the quantity. Great. Now let's add another log here also. Right here. That's fine. So UE log. Log tab, warning, text. Let's do again mutator. Add item is where I am. I'm in creating new entry. Right? So here in this loop, we are trying to create a new entry. We're trying to put it in a new slot that was not filled up previously. So let's do this. I'm gonna do creating new entry in format this slot equals in this slot the quantity and then new entry slot and new entry dot quantity. Great. And we have some logs, and I'm gonna add one more log actually here when all of this is done. So this is us calling the add item authority. It calls the add item, which we now have a bunch of logs to see what's happening. And then after all of this is done, after we've gotten the response, let's add a log here to see the final result. UE log. Loop. Warning. What? Here I actually want this to look a bit pretty. I don't want to show the enum as like 0, 1 and 2. Instead I want to actually show the string, so show success, failure and all that. So I'm going to convert this enum into a string. Here we go. Now that converts the enum into a text for us to see. Great. And now it's time to compile and see. Oh, what is this doing here? I never added this. Riders sometimes just add random stuff. Anyway, let's compile. Alright, now I'm in Unreal. So let's find the, if you don't know where it is, or maybe you're using your own project, but if you're using the default template here, I'm gonna go into third person blueprint and find the third person player controller. In here, I'm gonna add my inventory component. Let's call it inventory component. Alright, so that's the inventory component that has the inventory on it. So let's get some space here. Let me drag this here. And I'm gonna do keyboard 1. So when I press the 1 button on my keyboard, I want to, let's make sure that this is valid using this one. So if it is valid, then I want to do a request add item. Let's request to add an item, and this needs a request, so we can build one. Make request, here we go. And it needs a container, so it needs to know where are we trying to save this into. Let's create a new tag for it. So I'm going to create a container id dot player inventory and add this here. So now it knows that I want to save this item into the player inventory. It needs an item tag also. I'm gonna create an item dot consumable dot potion. Okay, and also same thing here, add it. So there we go. Now I'm creating a potion. So I'm adding a potion inside the player inventory, and the quantity can be 1. Great. Let me compile and save this. So we press the 1 button, we make sure that the inventory component is valid. We call request item passing this information, and it tries to add it. So let's see. What do we get? So let's open the log. Make sure my log is cleared, right? And now I'm gonna press, oh, let's do client first. Okay, so here, make sure I'm on the client. Let's press play. Okay, I got my character here. If I press 1, what happens? Nothing happens. I'm spamming 1 and nothing is happening. Great. So something is wrong. We need to figure out what's wrong. Okay, so my recording crashed again, so let's do this again. Yes, so the problem was that since I copied this earlier, I forgot to add the exclamation mark to say not valid, right? So what we were doing is just checking if we were on the server, and if we were on the server, then we were returning false, which doesn't make any sense. So what we just need to do is just add this here so that it says if we are not on the server, then return false. That was the issue. So now if we compile this, everything should work now. We are back in the engine, so let's test this again. So I'm on the client, I press play, And I'm just gonna clear this and press 1. Hey, look at that. So we created an item. So I see creating an entry, slot 0, quantity 1. And then it says added 1, remaining is 0, and result is successful. So if I keep pressing it, as you can see, we keep adding items. So that's working. That's nice. And what if you try on the server? Yep, working on the server too. Great. And what if we change the number? Let's say 5 at a time. And I press 1 now. Yep, that's working. Perfect. Nice. Alright, I'm gonna stop here for now. Like, comment, and subscribe. I do have a Patreon if you want to support me there. There's the next tutorial probably already uploaded there, and the project files. Yep, I hope you've enjoyed, and see you in... Oh, and I do have a Discord also, so if you have questions and stuff, you can join the Discord. And yep, see you in the next one. Bye bye.